is a fairly straightforward drawing assignment, but not necessarily that easy to do. First of all, you need to find yourself what you need to draw, which is either going to be a branch, a twig from a plant, or possibly a flower with a stalk attached. First of all, you need to think about where you're going to put it. I've put a piece of white paper on the table here. By placing it on the white paper, we get better light and shadows, light on the plant and shadows underneath the plant cast against the nice white paper. I've got it underneath the window, which makes quite soft shadows. You could equally put it next to a lamp, a light, which will make sharper shadows. Either way, you get to see quite nice dark shadows. The drawing you need to make is an A4 drawing. Try and find yourself a decent piece of drawing paper. Paper straight out of the printer of the computer is nice and white, but it's also very smooth and quite thin. It's less nice to draw on, so if you can find something which is a little bit thicker, it does a better job. Now when you start drawing, make sure that you use pretty much the whole sheet, which in my case means my stalk is going to start in this bottom corner and is going to run right across to the other side, with a leaf at the far end here and these bigger leaves coming off somewhere around here. Start quite lightly. If you make mistakes, you can always rub them out later, but don't be too quick with your rubber. Sometimes it's quite useful to have mistakes still on the paper so that you can help draw the correct lines where you need to have them. Now if you look, I'm starting just by making a line drawing. I'm not trying to do any shading at the moment. Gradually adding leaf by leaf to the drawing. And then maybe I can thicken up a stalk. That way I'll gradually build the drawing up bit by bit. The nice thing about drawing a plant or a branch of a plant is that if your drawing isn't exactly as the real thing there, it's not necessarily going to matter too much. It's about creating something which has the sort of feel of the branch of the flower and doesn't necessarily have to be a precise diagram. Once you've got the basic line forming shape, a good place to go next is to start looking at the shadows underneath the forms of the leaves. Often they're the darkest places in the drawing. In this case the shadows are fairly subtle, they're not so dark, but by adding these shadows in, we start to create the feeling that the leaves are lifting off the table a little bit. It's not quite so flat. Don't be afraid to press hard with your pencil. It's nice to have a good level of contrast in your drawing. Once you've worked on the shadows a little bit to get the forms of the leaves a little bit better, then move on to the leaves themselves. On the leaves themselves there's also areas which are darker and some areas which are lighter. Use careful, gentle shading to gradually build up the shapes and forms of the leaves. Don't hurry it, it does take a little bit of time, but once you've done a couple of leaves you'll start to realise what you need to do on the other ones to create leaves that look like leaves and feel like leaves. Now take a look at some drawings made by other artists who had a go at similar subjects.